Hey everybody, Matt from Customs by Matchu here, and welcome to our first episode of Custom Figure Showcase, where I'll be walking you through my process to bring these one-of-a-kind custom figures to life. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at classic Avengers villain, Arsenal. Let's take a look.
I started with the Juggernaut Build-A-Figure body, and a random head to use as a starting point for the helmet. I took the figure apart using a steam bath and a nail set, and used my Dremel hobby knife and sandpaper to sand down the points of contact at all the joints to prevent paint rub. I also had to remove the bands from the closed fists, as well as a finger from all four hands. I then sand the entire figure with 320 grit sandpaper to lightly rough up the surface. After a thorough cleaning, with a toothbrush and dish soap, I reassembled the figure and began sculpting by filling in the peg holes. I use Abe's epoxy sculpt for all my sculpt work on this figure. I continue by starting the resculpt on the hands as well as the base of the studded bracers. Multiple layers of epoxy sculpt later, and lots of hand sanding, and I'm finally happy with the thickness of all the bracers. Time to move on to the skin. To achieve the concrete appearance of the skin, I made a flexible texture stamp using a product called Blue Stuff. I then applied small amounts of epoxy sculpt to the musculature of the body and thinned it out as much as possible. I let it sit for an hour before lightly pressing the stamp into it. I had to texture individual segments of muscle at a time to ensure I wouldn't make a mess of the surrounding area. I finish up the helmet, then add studs to his belt and bracers by applying small balls of epoxy sculpt to the base. Then, using a circle cutter, I make each of the studs the same size. I measured each bracer prior to starting to make sure each stud was properly spaced out. Before I start the painting process, I give the entire figure one final sand and a thorough cleaning. I mask the pegs and holes to avoid any paint buildup on them. I start with a few coats of gray primer. Using a mix of P3 and Citadel paints and washes, I apply multiple layers of gray with my airbrush and give the skin a slight dry brushing of copper and an overspray of gray to finish it off. Yellow can be a very challenging color to apply cleanly, but I have a method that works great for consistently bright and clean yellows. I start by masking all the gray skin and spraying the bracers, helmets, boots, and trunks with Army Painter yellow primer. From there, I apply a 4-shade combo to give my yellows some depth and really make them pop. For the gold bracers, I use multiple layers of Vallejo gold and a couple light coats of Turbo Dork pucker. I finished it up by painting the eyes chrome silver, then hitting it with Tamiya clear red on top. Once all my painting was finished, I gave him a few coats of Pledge Floor Care using my airbrush. It gives a mid-gloss finish that blends in nicely with Marvel Legends while giving the surface of the paint an extra layer of protection. Be careful not to overspray, or it can leave the figures with a slight tackiness. Overall, I'm super happy with how Arsenal turned out. The skin texturing on this big guy really came together nicely, and his paint job really pops. I can proudly say that this is my favorite custom of 2021.
Thanks for stopping by the channel. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, hit the notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any questions about Arsenal or how he was made, just leave them in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Stick around, more content coming soon.